Now, McCarthy's also threatened to bar Eric Swalwell, who sits on the House Intel Committee, despite having a past relationship with a suspected Chinese spy. All three members responded with outrage towards McCarthy and Republicans, but as Newt Gingrich rightly reminded everyone, it was Nancy Pelosi that set the precedent after removing Paul Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene from their committee assignments. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, joins us with more. I mean, I think that's the funny part of it. They're all outraged about it, but they set the standard. Now the rules apply to them, and now they don't like it.
Well, look, but that's typical of the Democrats. They think it's if they cheat, it's okay, and if you're honest, you must be cheating. So I think Pelosi, at the time I said, this is a terrible precedent. This sets a stage for the majority party to decide who gets to serve on every committee, and she went ahead and did it. All these folks supported her in doing it. And now it's come back around to bite them. And frankly, the three people that Speaker-designate McCarthy has picked are perfect examples. One, Omar is an openly anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli bigot. She certainly should not be in the Foreign Relations Committee. Swalwell has various relations with Chinese who are supposed to be spies. He certainly should not be on the Intelligence Committee. And frankly, if I could have done it, I would have had Schiff on no committee at all. Schiff is a liar. He was there as the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He used that post, which presumably gave him unique knowledge, and he just routinely lied. And every lie was a smear of the President of the United States. So I have no sympathy for any of the three of them, and I'm very proud that Speaker-designate McCarthy has, in fact, followed through on his commitment and is going to take them off their committees.
What advice do you have now that the Republicans have a pretty similar majority they'll have as the last Congress where the Democrats had control? Obviously, in the judiciary, Jim Jordan will investigate whether the FBI has been politicized and the DOJ weaponized. Then Congressman Comer is looking into Hunter and Joe Biden. He said this is an investigation into the President of the United States. I've often pointed out that most people are missing the obvious, and that was there was a reason that Joe withheld $1 billion from Ukraine. There's a reason that Hunter complains bitterly about all the money he has to pay his dad. And apparently now, according to Congressman Comer, there are even banking records that will corroborate Joe Biden financially benefited from his zero-experience son making, all these deals with up to 50 countries, making millions and with no experience with any of them. And some of our most hostile, regimes out there, China, Russia, et cetera.
Well, look, I mean, first of all, I think the American people have the right to know about a lot of things. Frankly, I'd like to know how much money the University of Pennsylvania got from the Chinese communists, how much of that went to Joe Biden and what was, in effect, a White House staff waiting in the wings. All of that's been kept secret. The University of Pennsylvania will not admit how many millions of dollars it took. So there's a lot there that ought to be looked at. My advice, though, would be that the American people would like this Congress to be 10% investigations and 90% solutions. We have a lot of real problems, and we need real action on a wide range of things. I like the fact that the Speaker-designate McCarthy has already said the very first vote is going to wipe out the 87,000 Internal Revenue Service agents. That's a policy decision, not just an investigation. So my advice would be twofold. One, try to discipline yourself so it's 90% good solutions, 10% investigations. That's plenty of time to get a lot done. And second, House Republicans have to learn to be a team. They can have all the fights in the conference they want, but this recent suggestion that some of them might not vote for McCarthy on January 3rd is so suicidal and so stupid that you really have to wonder where they're at. I mean, do they really want to see the moderate Republicans join the Democrats in getting some kind of coalition speaker? I mean, what's their end game other than throwing a temper tantrum? They can have all the fights they want inside the conference. They have to work together when they're on the floor.
You said about this election year that, for you to fully understand it, you're going to have to throw away every model that you knew in past elections. So I've been thinking a lot about what you said, and I think voting now in the last two elections, the way we vote, more mail-in voting, absentee voting, early voting, all this stuff, voting by mail, that has changed pretty drastically now in the country. I'm not sure if Republicans have bought into it. Then I can't reconcile the Republicans winning the popular vote by such a large margin and not winning by a bigger margin. Then we have this thing that I've been telling you about, accelerated migration. They're leaving blue states to avoid shutdowns, lockdowns. They want their kids to have in-person learning, and they want lower taxes, so they move to red states to get redder. But, swing states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania are going to get harder. Abortion played a bigger part in this election than I think anybody of us thought it would. And young people, I think, wanted their student loan forgiveness. They seem to show up in bigger numbers. What have you gleaned from the information so far?
Well, look, I think a couple of things. First of all, the Republican model for campaigning, the Republican consultants, are just wrong. They're obsolete. Democrats focus on elections. Republicans focus on campaigns. So Democrats begin gathering up votes very, very early. They work at it very methodically. Some of the Republicans, and frankly, the truth is that Senator McConnell was a major problem here because his super PAC, which is a huge source of money, refused to spend money early. Well, if you're going to have early voting and you're going to have, coming out of a primary, the Democrat spends 2 or 3 months defining the Republican, and then the people start to vote, and by the time McConnell starts to spend his money, half the vote's already in. You just have an obsolete model. So Republicans have got to look at reality. Early voting is real. In some states, ballots boxes are real. In some states, you're going to have to go out and figure out how to get people to vote very early and to stick to it. And I think that you also have to understand we don't have an election day. We now have an election 6 weeks, and Republicans aren't ready for that.
I'll tell you the last thing. It's sad that any voting takes place before debates take place, and Democrats have learned from Joe Biden the hiding in your basement bunker strategy with a complicit liberal media seems to work too, and we better pay attention to that. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.